The former lawmaker in Mexico was recently convicted of, quote, gender-based violence for writing social media posts that push back against the transgender movement. The case involves Rodrigo Ivan Cortez, a pro-life civil leader. He was convicted after referring to a transgender man as, quote, a man who self-ascribes as a woman. This as lawmakers in Mexico also consider a measure that would refer to Christian teachings about sexuality as hate speech. We go now to Tomas Enriquez, Director of Advocacy in Latin America and the Caribbean for ADF International. Tomas, thank you so much for your time today. We really appreciate it. First off, tell us more about this case. Your client, Mr. Cortez, is facing charges for referring to a transgender man as a man who self-ascribes as a woman. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, you got it exactly right. Rodrigo is today a citizen, and like any other citizen, he's concerned about what's happening in his country. When he saw the bill that was presented in Congress by Sabol, he decided to go to Twitter and speak out about it. And in doing so, by just using words, he was ultimately convicted in the first instance by the Electoral Court of Mexico of having committed gender-based political violence and sexual, psychological, and digital and symbolic violence merely for having said that Sabol is a man who identifies as a woman.
So where do things stand right now with this case? I understand that Mexico's Supreme Court is considering whether to weigh in on this case.
Yes, in this case, it's called the Electoral Court of the Federal Judiciary. It's a constitutional court, and it is the highest court in Mexico for this sort of cases. They are, and we're scheduled to issue a decision last week on the case. Yet, for reasons that are currently unknown, they decided to punt on it and simply took it out of the docket for a later date. So Rodrigo Ivan Cortez is currently waiting to see whether or not his appeal will be not heard, but rather decided, and whether or not they'll quash the judgment by the first instance court.
Tomas, tell us how significant this case is. I mean, can you put it into perspective for us?
Yes. So it has been the case that currently internationally, we've never seen any jurisdiction where an individual has been convicted of having used, his own or her own speech to refer to the reality of a man being a man or a woman being a woman. Mexico is the first place in the world in which this is happening, and this actually has happened already in the past. There is definitely a movement, a phenomena of those in power using the power of the state to chill speech and win the argument over reality, not by persuasion, but rather by simply using force to avoid opponents from speaking out. And that is exactly what they're trying to do with Rodrigo Ivan Cortez, and that is exactly what we're trying to stop from happening in the future through legal action today.
Yeah, and there seems to be a lot of concern among the faithful in Mexico regarding free speech. What more can you tell us about that?
Well, as I said, this is part of an ongoing process over there, and it has affected churches, it has affected individuals like Rodrigo, and even politicians. Nobody is really safe from specifically this activist court, which in alliance with Sabol, who is the one that has been bringing all of these cases to the court, is simply using it for the chilling of speech. Now, it happens that you don't really need to punish everybody. You just need some specific, very notable, high-profile cases like that of Rodrigo or of Lawmaker Quadri to just be the way in which you show the rest of society that if they speak out and try to toe or they don't toe the line, this is what's going to happen to them as well.
Well, Tomas, we have probably maybe 20 seconds left or so, but anything else about this case that you'd like our viewers to know about?
It's just a showing of the sad, unfortunate state of affairs with respect to the judiciary in Mexico. As I said, this case has been pushed back, and it has been pushed back for very suspicious circumstances. There's not really much of a guarantee of having an impartial tribunal, and we think that that's a very sad state of affairs. But we trust that ultimately justice will prevail.
Well, Tomas, thank you so much for talking to us about this case. We really appreciate it. God bless you.